Hello, and welcome back to Shockingly Wicked, a true crime podcast where we bring you true crime cases from the headlines to the hometowns. I'm Briana.
I'm Brittany.
Maybe. And we are your... Oh, maybe? Maybe?
No, yeah, maybe.
Maybe. Okay. We're undecided today. Anyway, we are your hosts for the evening. I'm tired. that's all I'm gonna... I'm tired.
I woke up to go to work this morning, and Chris has been waking me up because he goes in like 3 hours later than I do, because he leaves for work at 5:30, so he gets up at 5, but I don't have to be at work till 8:30, so I was like, oh, wake me up when you get up. So I've been getting up, and this morning I got up, and he left, and I took a shower, and then I wrapped my hair up in a t-shirt because I don't use a towel, and I laid in bed and I fell back asleep, and I woke up at 7:45. I have to leave my house at 8 to get there at 8:30, and my hair is still wrapped in a towel.
Well, did you get to work on time?
No, I got there at 8:31.
Oh no. However will they survive without you for 1 minute? I was up until 5 something this morning. And then I got woken up around 10 o'clock because I forgot to put my phone on Do Not Disturb like I always do. And
hate that.
I got a spam call.
Oh!
And so then I fell back asleep for about 2 more hours before my puppy decided to run into the room and jump on my sternum. So today is just, it's one of those days. But we're going to power through, and we are going to make this a great episode. Aren't we, Brittany?
Yes.
She's eating cheesecake, and I'm very jealous. Okay, so today's case is going to be about Daniel Wozniak. This is a case that my sister's friend Timmy actually recommended to me. I hadn't heard about it before, but as I was...
His name is Timmy?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I know him as. I don't know if his full name is Timothy or if it's just Timmy, but yes,
like
it's
Timmy Turner?
Yes.
Does he have fairly godparents?
I don't think so, but I don't think I would know that because they aren't visible to anybody but him.
Ask him.
Okay, I'll ask him. So, Daniel Wozniak, this case actually upset me, which cases don't usually upset me, but this one it's usually there's a motive behind something happening, but I can't identify necessarily a motive for this one, and so I think that bothers me because it feels like I don't completely understand everything. But we're going to talk about it, and maybe you guys have some general ideas that I didn't come up with, so feel free to let us know once you listen to the episode. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started on some background. I'm actually going to talk about the victims first and then Daniel, because fuck Daniel. So, first we have Juri Kibuishi. She went by Julie. She was born on Valentine's Day, 1987.
Aww.
She was the third child and the first girl born to Jun and Masa Kibuishi. She had 2 older brothers and a younger sister. So she was an all-star softball player when she was younger. She also enjoyed to dance. She was described as kind, full of life, graceful, dynamic, compassionate, warm. Basically would do anything for a friend. And she... Yes.
I know she probably got murdered, but you know how like when somebody gets murdered or they die, and then they're like, "Oh, she's the light of the room."
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
I always wonder.
I just wanted to...
No, I agree with you. It's like I always wonder how accurate that actually is, or if that's just them being nice to the dead.
Get murdered or I die, I don't. Can you just tell nobody to show up to my funeral? I don't.
I will do my best. I will do my best.
Chris. Just like get with Chris and plan it.
Yeah, do like a little memorial thing. Yeah, I'll see what I can do. That's assuming I don't die first, but. All right.
And I would like Taylor Swift to play at it.
Well, I'll do my absolute best with that.
Like just on a repeated loop.
Okay, I'll make that happen.
Okay, continue.
So, Julie, she met our other victim, Samuel Hare, at Orange Coast College, where they were both students. Julie was pursuing fashion design.
She's gonna be like Coco Chanel. Coco Chanel did fashion design, right? No, I'm thinking of Vera Wang.
Are you okay?
Vera Wang.
Yes, Vera Wang. So she was pursuing fashion design while she was there, and she was also living at home with her family, and she was tutoring Sam in their anthropology class. She was 23 at the time that all of this happened.
What is anthropology?
It's like a history class. I'm trying to think. It's similar to archaeology in the sense that it's like the study of ancient cultures, but I think it's, hold on. Let's Google it. Anthropology is the study of humanity concerned with human behavior, human biology, cultures, and societies in both the present and the past. So I was kind of right. So in a way, it's like an offshoot of archaeology, just more focused on.
So it's not about bugs.
No.
Okay.
Why did you think it was about bugs?
Because anthropology sounds like antenna.
Okay. I could see that. I was just like, I don't know where this train of thought was going, but yeah, okay.
And bugs have antennas.
Okay. Well,
thank you.
No, it's not about bugs. So then we have Samuel. I think his middle name is Elizer. I genuinely don't know how this is pronounced. I've never seen this word before, but it's spelled Eliezer. That was his middle name. And he went by Sam.
Gotta keep an eye out for Eli's.
Shut up. He was born on May 29th, 1983. He was the only child born to Steve and Raquel Hare. The family was described as being super close. I don't know if that's just because they were, like, he was an only child, or if there was another reason, like they all just genuinely got along with each other. But he was described as fun to be around, the big brother type, very protective, and Julie herself had, like, told her mom about him and said that he was a big teddy bear.
Aww.
He was a war vet who fought in Afghanistan for 3 years, so he suffered from night terrors, symptoms of PTSD, and he was 26 at the time that all of this happened. And then Mr. Daniel Patrick Wozniak, this motherfucker. Born on March 23rd, 1984, he was an actor and director, but was otherwise not employed. I guess he didn't have, like, a full-time job.
I never saw him in anything.
Well, he did mostly community theater. So
I still never saw him.
So
he's not too big of an actor.
He was very prominent and active in community theater in the Los Angeles area. Community theater's not paid, to my knowledge. Like, that's what my sister said. When she lived in LA, she was doing community theater, and I don't think they were paid for that sort of thing. So even though he was acting, I guess, pretty regularly in these productions, he wasn't really making money.
It's not Broadway, sir.
Yeah, so I don't know. Anyway, it's weird because the only descriptions I could find for this guy were that he was like, okay, so he was called jovial, charming, personable, funny, polite, and somebody even said good looking, but it's like,
I'm gonna look him up.
I guess if that's your type, but he was apparently 6'2", so I'm sure that plays into why people thought he was attractive, but I don't personally think.
When you Google him, it comes up as an American theater actor. Not a murderer.
Well, he's a murderer. And at the time...
he has a unibrow.
I mean, I feel like most men do, because they don't really groom themselves that thoroughly. Anyway, at the time he was engaged to Rachel Buffett, who was also an actor. They had actually met in theater productions and they acted together a lot. So anyway, the crime. I'm not going to do the sound effects. I thought about it.
Please
do
it. Do it.
Fine. Okay, hold on. Maybe. It's loading. So, on Friday, May 21st of 2010, Julie met with her brother Taka for dinner in Long Beach, where he asked her to be a bridesmaid at his wedding. While they were at dinner, he had given her a tiara to wear. I guess that was like the invitation to be the bridesmaid type thing. While she was at dinner, she was receiving weird texts from Sam. So I have some quotes here of the actual text that she received. So one of them said,
was he asking Julie to be his bridesmaid? Or his partner's bridesmaid? Oh, okay.
I don't know. It didn't specify. It just said to be a bridesmaid. So, some of the texts that Sam was sending were, quote, "Can you come over tonight at midnight alone? Going out for a bit. Very upset. Need to talk." Unquote. And then the next one says, "Please, no sex. I need to talk to someone." Unquote. And Julie replied, "LOL, ew, Sam. We are like bro and sis. No sex." Unquote. And then the next one was, quote, "I'm hurting with some bad fam crap. I can't be alone. No sex. Please, I'm begging as a brother." Unquote. So, already off the bat, I'm like, this doesn't seem like him because of the fact that because she said we're like bro and sis, so like the fact that they brought up the no sex, it's like I don't think he would have done that, especially because I think I read somewhere that Julie was already in a relationship anyway with somebody who was stationed in Japan. I don't know if that's actually true or not. I only saw that in one place, but yeah, that like just the fact that they were considered odd texts, like it's not him.
Also, that's kind of weird to text your tutor that.
Well, they were considered friends too. Like they.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I think they started out as like a tutor relationship type thing, and then it grew into like a friendship where they would hang out outside of that.
Yeah.
So obviously, because Julie is the type to actually do anything for a friend, she agreed to help. So she left dinner and she drove to Sam's apartment. I think I mentioned earlier she was living at home, so the next morning, Julie's mother woke up and found that Julie hadn't come home, so she thought maybe she had stayed the night at the brother's house, and so she texted and called Julie but got no response. So then she texted and called Taka, and Taka was surprised because he had explained that Julie was getting these weird texts from Sam, and then June knew immediately that something was wrong. So she called the police. But this is going to really piss you off. The police brushed her off because her daughter was 23 and a college student. They said she was probably out drinking.
In the morning? She's out drinking in the morning?
Yeah.
LA has the worst police department.
Facts. Rivaled very closely with New York.
To New York. Like, those two are the worst.
Real.
Especially, like, throughout the 80s and 70s and 80s. Blech.
Don't even get me started on LAPD in the 80s. So at the same time, Sam's parents weren't able to get in contact with him. He was supposed to be going over to their house that weekend because, like I said, they were very close. So they called his phone and it went directly to voicemail. So around 9 p.m. that night, Steve Hare, Sam's dad, drove to Sam's apartment to go check on him, and nobody answered the door, but Steve had a key, so he let himself in. So at first, things looked okay. He said that in the living room, everything looked normal. But then as he's walking through the apartment looking for Sam, he checks in Sam's bedroom and he finds Julie's dead body on the bed and Sam is missing.
Oh! Okay.
Yeah, she had been shot twice in the head. The investigator said that her body was found in a position that made it appear that she had been sexually assaulted.
Aww.
But after investigating, they determined that she wasn't. The scene had just been staged to make it look that way. So her pants were cut and like pulled down to her knees, and someone wrote "all yours, fuck you" on her sweatshirt. She was still wearing the tiara that her brother gave her.
Stop!
Yeah.
That's
made me
so
really
sad.
That made me really sad. So, before the weird text that Sam had sent, police saw that he had sent one around 2:45 that afternoon explaining that he was going to be helping out a friend / his neighbor with something, and then he was going to be going to his parents' house for the weekend. So, he explained what his plans were, and that he was hanging out with this person before he was... So, like, that person would presumably be the last person who actually saw him.
Yeah.
Assuming that these other texts were not him. Sam obviously became the primary suspect because she was found in his apartment. There was these weird texts between the two. And as police were looking into it, they found out that he had been arrested in the past in what sounded like a gang initiation situation, where he had been accused of luring somebody to a parking lot where that person had been beaten to death or something like that. So he was acquitted of that, but he had been arrested for, I guess, murder in the past. So obviously police are like, oh,
what? How do you just... Wait, how do you just casually get arrested for murder?
Well, like I said, it was like he lured somebody somewhere, but I guess either there wasn't enough evidence to prove it, or he was not actually involved in this thing. But this
Wait,
happened
what
before.
gang was he in?
I have no idea. It didn't
Oh.
say. But
probably
this happened.
Probably like the Bloods or the Crips.
I don't want to speculate. That happened a couple of years before he joined the military, so he kind of straightened up after that.
How
But
do
he
you
must-
get arrested for murder and still
He
be
was
able to join the military?
He was acquitted, so technically
I know, but
he's not.
still.
He's not found guilty in the eyes of the law. So,
I don't care.
I mean, anyway, so Steve contacted Sam's friend Ruben, and Ruben revealed that he had also been trying to get in contact with Sam, but was unsuccessful. Until, eventually, somebody answered the phone. Ruben knew that it wasn't Sam, though, because the person, when they answered, said, "Hey, bro," and Sam never called him that, and also he said the voice just didn't sound the same. So,
Obviously.
The person said, no. The person on the other end said that he was busy and dealing with some family things before hanging up on Ruben. And so Ruben tried calling him back, but never got an answer again.
What was the point of even answering in the first place?
My guess is it was probably an accident, but it's like you can just hang up. Like, you can just hang up. You don't have to actually answer the phone. And so then another one of Sam's friends who was stationed with him overseas, Miles Foltz, he said that he knew that Sam would never have done something like that because of the way that he was so protective over his friends and family, and Julie was in that group. So he believed that it was maybe Sam's past catching up with him, like the whole gang past or just bad past or whatever. And so he took it upon himself to protect Sam's family by staying with them with his gun just in case anybody tried to come after them. So, investigation. Police decided to question people in Sam's friend circle, including his neighbors, Rachel Buffett, and her fiancé, Daniel Wozniak. So they said that the last time they saw Sam was the day before the murder, and he was with a guy in a black hat. Later, they claimed that was a lie.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so during this investigation phase, Sam's ATM card was used about 17 miles away from where the crime scene is. It was used at a pizza parlor and at an ATM in Long Beach. So $400 was withdrawn at the ATM. So police were able to check the security footage to see who withdrew the money. But it shows... What?
How much did they spend at the pizza parlor?
I have no idea. It didn't say.
Okay.
So they pulled the security footage, but it shows somebody who is not Sam.
Oh, really?
Yes. So detectives go and check out the pizza parlor that the money was spent at. And an employee said that he believed he knew who the person was that was in the security footage, so they gave him an address. And so police set up surveillance at this place.
How do you just randomly have a customer's address?
Delivery.
Oh. Yeah, that makes sense.
As a delivery driver, I should know this.
Okay. I mean, yeah.
Well, a former delivery driver, let me just throw that out there. Anyway, police set up surveillance outside this place thinking they had found Sam's hideaway. He was just chilling out at this house. When I guess they must have ordered another pizza, and pizza delivery went there. And so cops decided to move in. And instead of finding Sam, they find 16-year-old Wesley Freilich and his friends.
Oh.
So Wesley told police that he didn't actually know Sam, but he had gotten the card from a friend who told him that he worked for a bail bondsman agency and that they needed a third party to withdraw the money from the account because the person had skipped town and he owed dues or something like that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
so
mm-hmm.
Wesley's... Yeah.
I have questions.
As you should. But keep in mind, this is a 16-year-old kid. He doesn't...
He's just I'm trying to order pizza. Please leave me alone.
So he said that the person who gave him the card was a friend, and he showed paperwork that looked legit to back up this whole bail bondsman thing. So he agreed to withdraw the maximum allowed amount every single day to help pay back this supposed debt that the guy owed. So he said that the man who asked him, and the friend who asked him, was an actor who had taught him theater and someone he respected a lot as a mentor, Dan Wozniak. So this was an actual quote from what the kid said. He said, he had an actual folder of paperwork saying that this was all legal and that since I was a minor, I can't be charged. And that's when he pulled out the ATM card and gave me the instructions to withdraw the full amount and to make sure I wore a hat and glasses, unquote. So,
well, if you can't be charged, why do you have to wear a hat and glasses?
That, and also, like, I feel like the hat and glasses should have raised some red flags. Like, even if you're 16, like why do I need to do that, you know? Anyway, so Sam's dad was also kind of doing his own investigation behind the scenes, trying to figure out where his son went, because he didn't believe that Sam was the one who actually did this. Obviously, you're not going to think that your family member is capable of murder, even if
and
it turns out they are.
Yeah, and they probably are just trying to, like, oh wait, this is Dan's dad, right?
No, this is Sam's dad.
Yeah, so they're probably just trying to find Sam.
Yeah.
They want to know where their son is.
Yeah, they want to know where he is, if he's okay, all that. So he got numbers for all of Sam's friends, and he went and he called them, and he had actually called Dan and spoke to him. Dan claimed that Sam was nervous the last time that he saw him, and that he was talking about family problems, which is this thread that keeps coming up. But keep in mind that the family was super close, so Steve said he knew immediately that Dan was lying and knew something, because if there were family problems, obviously Steve would have known about it, because it's his son, and it's just him, the mom, and Sam. So police initially believed that Dan was maybe protecting Sam and withdrawing the money for him to help him hide, you know? So they pick him up for questioning at his bachelor party.
Dang. They probably thought it was going to be strippers.
They wanted a little fun too. Yeah, understandable.
Huh.
So the interrogation. During questioning, police tell Dan that they intend to charge him with accessory after the fact, just to get him talking, you know? Police are technically allowed to fib up to a certain point to get somebody talking. I'm not really a huge fan of that tactic. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, because you could lie and then they can admit under duress, and then you have to throw out the...
Exactly. Like, it could get to the point where they appeal because they're just like, I didn't have a lawyer present, or I didn't, you know, like,
or
all these
throw out
things.
That evidence altogether. Yeah. They wouldn't even...
So Dan claims that he and Sam came up with this plan to commit fraud together by having Wesley withdraw the money, and then Sam would call the bank and say that the card was stolen, so that they would give him more money, you know,
and arrest Wesley in the process.
Yeah. Dan also claims that Sam admitted to killing Julie after having done drugs and drinking heavily because he was, quote, depressed about his family, unquote. Dan said Sam asked Julie for sex, she said no, and then he shot her twice. Dan then said that Sam had threatened him and his wife if Dan didn't help him escape.
Actually, it's your fiance. You're not married yet.
Yes. He said the last time he saw Sam was when he dropped him off at a shopping center in Long Beach. So that was Dan's initial story, but remember, they also said at first that they had last seen Sam with a guy in a black hat. So this was around the time when they're like, okay, that was a lie. This is what actually happened.
Yeah.
But because he lied already once, what's to say he didn't lie again, you know?
Yeah.
So police, they always collect DNA samples to try and eliminate people. So because he was being cooperative, they collected a saliva sample from him, and when they explained what they're going to do with it in an attempt to eliminate him...
Did they have DNA?
I don't know.
Like, was there DNA evidence at the crime scene?
I think there was, but at this point they hadn't gotten results back.
Oh, okay.
Because this all happened pretty quickly. I think this was only like 2 days after the murder, 2-3 days. Like, this all happened within the span of a week, basically. So Dan became worried, it seemed like, about them possibly finding his DNA in the apartment. Mm-hmm. So he came up with this explanation saying that he was in the apartment on Friday and he had used the bathroom and may have been in a couple of other places in the apartment, you know, trying to cover his tracks. And then as the police continue to question him about his involvement in the case, he starts to get more and more defensive and angry, because they were asking, you know, like, where is Sam? He keeps insisting he dropped him off. He doesn't know where he is. He's insisting he didn't have anything to do with Julie's murder. So around this time, police can kind of tell that he's not telling the whole truth. They just don't know what he's hiding.
Mm-hmm.
So they decide to tell him, we're going to arrest you and charge you with accessory to murder. Because at first he had just come in for questioning, but they were saying, we're going to officially charge you. And so Dan starts to change his story again, saying that he'll basically say anything that would get him out of there and to his wedding that was on that Friday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So now he claims that he did see the body, saw 2 bullet hole wounds in her head, and everything that had happened to her clothes, like with the writing and the cutting. Like, he said that the pants had been like cut with scissors, which was consistent with what looked like to happen, because like I said, the scene was staged to make it look like she had been assaulted, but she actually hadn't been. So as questioning progressed, police decided to bluff and said that the DNA, like his DNA, was found on the body.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said that if it was because he was right over the body. So it's like they keep like nudging him, and it keeps changing his story. So obviously he's still lying. So questioning progresses. He then contradicts himself and tried to claim he didn't actually know where she had been shot, even though it was shortly before that he had said he'd seen the wounds in her head. So he started getting his lies twisted.
Yeah.
And then he claims he helped to clean the crime scene. That's like how he knew whatever was in here.
Well, how did you clean the crime scene if the body's still there?
Yeah.
Okay. I was like,
I guess getting rid of like bullet casings or something, but like otherwise.
If the body is still there, they have a pretty good amount of evidence.
Yeah. So Rachel's brother Noah was also under suspicion at first, and they questioned him for a while, but he was never charged.
And this is Daniel's fiance?
Yeah, Rachel is Daniel's fiance. So I think what it said in the Dateline episode I watched was that Noah had like driven Daniel to one of the ATMs or something to get money or something. I don't remember exactly. So they thought he might have been involved, but he didn't actually know anything. Yeah. So while Dan was being held in jail, he called Rachel, and as you probably know, all phone calls from jails and prisons are recorded. Mm-hmm. So during this call, Rachel says that she needs to tell the detectives that Dan's brother Tim said that he had some evidence. Because I guess Rachel had seen the brother and the brother's girlfriend before that phone call, and the brother, when he found out that Dan had been arrested, looked terrified, and then like accidentally let it slip that he had some evidence.
Yeah.
So Dan's mood suddenly changed at that point because he was trying to convince Rachel not to turn in that information over to the detectives, but she was like, no, I need to tell them, they're going to hear this call and they're going to know that I'm hiding something from them,
Well, not only that, my brother is going to go to jail and he didn't even do anything.
Yeah, and so Dan's mood shifts and he said, quote, "Then I'm doomed."
Yeah, you did it.
Yeah. And so then he decides, during that phone call, he's like, I'm going to tell them everything. It's just imagine the worst possible thing. And that's what happened, is essentially what he was saying. And we'll get right to that after a quick word about our sponsors.
If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free.
And who doesn't love free? There are also creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right in app, so you don't even need a fancy microphone or anything.
Which is so cool. Also, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it'll be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else that you get your podcasts or listen to them.
You can also make money from your podcast, and you don't need to have a minimum listenership. It might not be a whole lot at first, but it adds up.
Yeah, and who doesn't love money, honey? Anchor is everything and has everything you need to make a podcast all in one place.
So go ahead and download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. On May 27th, Dan confessed to killing both Julie and Sam. Because remember, at that point, they just thought Sam was on the run.
And they still haven't found Sam, right?
Yeah, correct. So he confesses to killing both of them. So he says that he went after Sam first. They had driven to the Liberty Theater on the Joint Forces Training Base in Los Alamitos, where Dan claimed he needed help bringing things down from the attic. So while Sam was bent over going to, I guess, pick something up, he shot Sam once in the back of the head. But Sam didn't die immediately. Like, he was still alive, and he started asking for help, and then Dan shot him again. So then he took Sam's phone and went to perform in a show that same night.
What a psychopath.
Yeah, and like that performance was actually recorded by one of the other cast members' husbands, and Dan does not look stressed at all. Like,
what a good actor.
It doesn't show that he literally just murdered somebody, you know? Like, usually somebody's gonna be stressed out when they do something that, like...
Yeah, like you've murdered?
Yeah, like, murder is traumatizing.
For the average person, I would think.
Yeah. So then backstage during the show was when he texted Julie those strange texts about, like, meeting him, being upset with the family, things like that.
I just don't understand. He killed Sam, and I could kind of get that for, like, because he's using his bank card to get money. But why text Julie?
There's a reason.
Okay.
And I will, yes.
I'm glad.
So he, after the show, meets Julie at the apartment, at Sam's apartment, and he uses a key to get inside the apartment. Basically, he pretended like both of them had been called there by Sam, and they were both worried about him, you know? So he said he goes into the bathroom to reload the gun, and then he asked Julie if she had seen something that was in Sam's bed that was freaking him out. And so she, like, bent over the bed to see what he was talking about, and then he shot her twice in the back of the head.
Oh,
so
my God.
He returned to the theater where he left Sam's body. I believe it was the next day, and he used an axe and a saw to dismember the body. I believe he decapitated the body and then removed, like, an arm and a hand, and then he buried those body parts at El Dorado Nature Center. He claimed at the time that he was confessing that the torso was still in the attic of the theater.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And then when police asked him what was going through his mind as he was dismembering this body, he said that he was actually smiling and laughing because he was like, I've officially lost my mind, you know, or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just like, if you're smiling and laughing while dismembering a body, you're probably
a sociopath.
Psychopathic. Yes. There's no question about it. So police do find the body parts that were buried in the park, and they actually found his head on what would have been his 27th birthday.
Ah, that's sad.
So...
what a terrible birthday.
Yeah. The evidence that Dan had given to his brother said it was like a box, and inside of it was a murder weapon, as well as Sam's bloody clothes and some personal effects.
Oh my God.
The brother claims he didn't know what was in the box. Like, he had just been given it and been told to, like, keep it and hide it or something like that.
And how old is the brother again?
I don't know, actually.
Like, is he young?
I think he was older than Daniel.
Oh, okay.
But
he's probably just, like, he got the box and he's probably, like, trying to respect his privacy.
Yeah, that would be my guess. So, his motive for killing Sam and Julie, it was, quote, money and insanity. That was what he said. This is like an actual quote from him. He said, quote, "I'm sorry. The truth is I've been slowly going crazy and becoming a pathological liar, and I find it hard to tell the truth," unquote. But, like, I don't know. If you're a pathological liar, how can I believe that you...
didn't just lie?
Yeah. Anyway, so Dan allegedly was deeply in debt and was about to be evicted, but he also wanted money to finance his upcoming wedding and honeymoon. However, he claims that the media exaggerated the amount of debt he was in and that he was only like a month or two behind on rent. I believe he said this in a letter to somebody, because if anybody ever searches up Daniel Wozniak, you're going to see a blog that's called DanielWozniakIsMyFriend.com.
Oh.
So basically, like, I read about 2 pages of it, and I still don't know how I feel about it, but basically this person actually owned the theater that Dan, I think owned or managed at least the theater that Dan was doing that last show at. And so, like, they were acquaintances.
Wait, did he find the torso?
No, that was at a different theater, not the one that he was actually doing the show at. So this person was decided to write Daniel while he was in jail, because between the time that this happened and then his trial, it was about 4.5 years, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe 5. And so he hadn't gone to trial yet. And so this person was just like, I want to hear it from him. Like, I want to figure out what's going on in his head, you know? Like I said, I've only read 2 pages, so I still don't know how I feel about it, but it makes me kind of uncomfy overall.
Oh, I don't like that.
I don't either. But I'm going to eventually read the majority of this blog just to see the progression. The person does...
Was he, like, trying to make excuses for him?
It doesn't seem like it, and I actually don't know. I think it might be a woman, because, like, there are things every now and then that hint, but they never actually specifically say who they are. So they don't seem to make excuses. Like, I went back to the beginning, but I did read, like, the very latest post as well. They acknowledge that Daniel murdered these people.
Oh, okay.
But they also acknowledge that... Okay, so basically, they wrote this blog, I guess, to humanize him so that he doesn't appear to be the monster who murdered 2 people, but they do acknowledge that he murdered 2 people. And so I'm like, I get it, but at the same time, it bothers me, because it's like, if what he claims is true, that the media exaggerated the amount of debt he was in, then what...
He could have just took out a loan.
Well, if that claim is correct, then what was his motive? Why did he kill these people if it wasn't just for the money?
Like, I get... Like, okay, I don't get it, because I wouldn't murder somebody, but, like, I understand Sam. He stole his debit card. I still don't understand Julie.
We're gonna get to that in just a minute.
Oh, okay. I was like, did you pass the point? Because I don't get it.
No, I haven't gotten there yet. So basically, if money was the motive, Sam had actually told Dan that he had about $62,000 worth of combat pay from when he was overseas in a savings account.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so that's why, if money was the motive, I would understand it. But Dan himself is saying that the debt thing was exaggerated. So it's like, okay, if that wasn't the reason why you did it, then why did you do it? You know?
It probably is the reason that he did it, but he doesn't, like, he seems like the type to be too proud to admit that he's in debt.
I could see that, yeah. That's valid.
So he probably doesn't want people to think that he was actually in debt.
That would make sense. And so the reason why he killed Julie was because he wanted to frame Sam to cover his tracks.
I get that. Sam goes missing, and then he's gonna make it look like Sam did kill Julie, so now there's a reason for Sam to go missing.
Yeah. So the only reason why Julie died was to cover up this guy's murder. That bothered me, because I'm just like, first of all...
This whole case bothers me.
Well, yeah, exactly. This whole case bothers me, but, like, this is the part that upset me, because it's like, she didn't do anything.
Literally, she's just the wrong person.
She just happened to be a friend, and the type who would drop everything to come and help. So it's... Anyway, that's why I said fuck this guy, because fuck this guy.
Yeah, fuck this guy.
Anyway, so in one of the blog posts, they mentioned in one of the letters that he had apparently tried to kill himself shortly after he was arrested.
Oh.
And that he ended up in a coma, but, like, I don't know how true that is, because I literally never heard that in any other thing. Like, I read other things and nothing mentions that, so...
What a loser.
It could just be something he was saying to try and get attention, you know? Trying to make himself appear to be, I guess, remorseful.
Oh, me,
Yeah.
I killed these people, but I can't do jail, so I have to kill myself. Ugh.
Yeah. And then in that same letter, he also claims that at the time that this happened, he was doing a lot of drugs, like crystal meth, heroin, ecstasy, and a lot of pills, but I have a hard time believing he was doing all of that. If he was...
Meth is an upper, and heroin is a downer, and I guess you could take them at the same time, but when you take heroin, I think you just are asleep, so... I have questions.
It's very dangerous if you do them at the same time. But basically, he was just saying that...
speedballing?
I have no idea. I don't think he was doing them all at the same time, but it was just like, those are the ones that he was taking in that time frame.
I could see it. like if you're an addict, but he doesn't seem like he's. I mean, I don't know him, but he doesn't seem like he's an addict.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that I didn't hear any mention of drugs anywhere except for his letter.
Not that this excuses him, but I know when you do crystal meth, you like hallucinate, or like it makes you like super paranoid. So I mean, I don't know if that equals to killing somebody, but
if it does, it doesn't explain Julie's thing, I don't think, because it's like he still had to go out of his way to plan.
I was about to say, yeah, unless he like killed Sam and then he like took meth, like was doing meth, and then he was like, oh my god, I gotta kill somebody.
Yeah, I don't know, but it was just the whole motive behind this. It bothers me because it still seems unclear. Like,
yeah,
if it was money, I could justify that. Like, I can make sense of that in my head. But if it's not, then I'm just like, okay, then why did you do this? Like, you know. So he was charged with first-degree murder, and then Dan's brother, Tim, and his girlfriend, they were charged with accessory after the fact for hiding the evidence. So Tim pled guilty, and he got 3 years of probation, I guess, out of like a deal. And then the girlfriend's case was dismissed because, like, I don't think she was really actually like involved in anything. She just happened to be there.
I don't want to say, like I feel bad, but I do feel bad if he didn't actually know anything.
So during his trial, Dan actually pleaded not guilty in spite of the fact that he had confessed to police.
Ugh.
And then he did some interviews later where he recanted that confession and says that he never killed either of them. That really bothered me because I'm just like...
It's like he's like, I don't want to stay in jail.
Yeah, well, it's just like, what are you gaining from saying that you didn't do this?
Being an asshole, that's what he gained.
Yeah, it's like you're just dredging this up for the family, making it last a whole lot longer for them. I don't know, it's like, if he felt sorry for what he did, I wouldn't think he was as much of an asshole. Like, yeah, he still murdered people, but at least he has some sort of empathy or human emotion, but it just does not sound like he's capable of that. So during the trial, his defense team didn't really do much of anything to really like argue that he wasn't the person who killed them. So like they didn't do an opening statement and they didn't do any presenting of witnesses, but they did argue during the sentencing phase to try and get him a lighter sentence. And we'll talk about that a little bit at the end.
That kind of sucks because he can appeal and say he didn't have adequate counsel.
Yeah. So December 16th, 2015, the jury deliberated for about 3 hours and he was obviously found guilty.
We said it before, but if they deliberate for less than a day, you're guilty.
And then for his sentencing trial on January 11th, 2016, the jury deliberated for only about an hour before recommending he be sentenced to death. So he was given the death penalty at his actual sentencing hearing. However, in 2016, so the same year, an execution moratorium was instituted in California, and the execution chamber at San Quentin, which is the prison he was actually transferred to, was closed. So there are apparently over 700 inmates on death row, but no executions have actually happened in like a decade or over a decade.
What's the execution
moratorium? It basically is just like, we're not doing executions. Oh. Like, you can keep sentencing people to death, but we're not executing them.
Maybe just sentence them to life and...
Well, that's the thing. I don't understand why people will still go for the death penalty, because like the only reason that they're getting put on death row is because it's still a part of state law. But if there's this moratorium and there hasn't been any executions in over a decade, even before that was in place, like it feels like a waste of taxpayer money, because when somebody gets sentenced to death, they're able to do all of these appeals in the process, and so that wastes taxpayer money.
Yeah, I get if they're like in Texas and they have like a death penalty, like where they can be executed, like I get sentencing them to death because they can be executed, but I don't understand why you would sentence somebody to death and they're not doing what?
Yeah, that it made no sense to me. Like, I understand. So I don't necessarily agree with the death penalty for a multitude of reasons, but I get it. Like, I get why people want it in some instances. But like I said, it is a waste of taxpayer money, because it's actually, this is something I researched when I was doing my master's degree, was that the death penalty technically is more expensive than just life in prison because of
Yep.
all of the appeals processes that it goes through, because taxpayers are obviously paying for the legal system to keep functioning, because that's government. So
Yeah, I'm kind of
it's
opposite. Like, I get the death penalty, but I think like it's not black and white. Like, it is obviously a case by case basis.
yeah.
I mean, like, I don't. Not that I'm for the death penalty, but I'm not like against it in cases like Ted Bundy, for example, deserved to be on death row. I don't know. It's a whole topic, but I do think like people like Ted Bundy, we should study them more before we execute them.
Especially with Ted Bundy, because if I remember right, he was hinting at the fact that he had killed more people, and that if
Yeah.
they stayed his execution longer, he would tell them about this information. I understand why they decided to be like, hey, fuck you, and kill him anyway, but those families now don't have any closure.
Yeah, I think, well, that, and then like get psychologists in there and study like the mind of
Yeah.
a serial killer. You know what I'm saying? Like stuff like that. And there's like a lot of gray area with the death penalty, and I 110% understand that. But at the same time, I do think it's like a case by case basis.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my personal belief.
But yeah, so basically there's a stay of execution, so he's not going to get executed because there are over 700 inmates ahead of him.
Put him in life in prison.
Essentially, that's what it was. Like, he was on death row, but he wasn't going to be put to death because there's this whole thing in place. Actually, while I was researching, literally yesterday, there was an article that said that Dan had actually been moved out of San Quentin State Prison into a lower security prison as part of what's called the Condemned Inmate Transfer Pilot Program. And so, like, it's a lower security prison technically, but the other prisons that are in the program, they still have to be level 3 or 4, which are still considered maximum security. So the basis of the program is, here's like an actual quote from an article that I read about it. So, quote, they describe it as a way for those previously confined to death row to participate in rehabilitation and work programs in order to pay restitution to their victims or their families, unquote.
I get that, but people like Dan, I don't think can be rehabilitated.
Well, and that's the thing, is that I am an advocate for rehabilitation, but
100%.
Not for violent offenders, though.
No, because I'm sorry, but somebody, John Wayne Gacy, he murdered all of those boys and he raped them. Some people just cannot be rehabilitated. Violent offenders fall under that category, in my personal opinion.
And in most rehabilitation programs in jails and prisons anyway, they don't allow violent offenders in. And so, because that was another aspect of the research I did for my master's, was focusing on rehabilitation and reintegration of ex-offenders into society. But every single thing that I saw, it never, like, violent offenders never qualified for it. So I don't
Understand that.
Yeah, it's like, I understand the concept behind the program. I don't agree with it, though.
Yeah, like my mom, she was in a rehabilitation. One of the times she went to prison. Anyway, she was in a rehabilitation thing, and it was actually like kind of cool. Not like cool, but like, I mean, as a child, not a child, but like as a teenager, I didn't really understand it. But now looking back on it, it was like they got to go to work, which starts to like be able to reintegrate them into society. The family members would come and do not counseling, but like, so for example, like my mom was there and I came and I got to like tell her, you know, X, Y, and Z about how everything made me feel. And it was a good way to get things out in the open before they're released in the sense of, this way it doesn't hit the fan when they come back into like freedom, in a sense.
Yeah.
And it was cool. They had to graduate from it. Off topic, but I went, and so they didn't have like cells in this, from what I remember. They had like dorm. It was like a dorm. Well, anyways, the bathrooms weren't in the room. They had one bathroom for the inmates and then one bathroom for the guests. I did not realize that. I walked into the inmate bathroom and I was using the bathroom and I was like, why is this like toilet out here? Like there's like 2 of them and there's no walls. And this woman comes in and she's in prison and she was like, oh, what are you doing in here? I was like, on the toilet, and I was like, I'm trying to pee. Off topic.
That's gotta be real awkward.
It was.
So Steve Hare, Sam's father, said that he actually didn't find out that Daniel had been transferred from the authorities themselves. He found out from that blog that I talked about, the Dan Wozniak is my friend blog.
I feel like they should have told the victim's family about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that, it doesn't make sense to me why you wouldn't notify the family. Like, I feel like that's something they deserve to know.
Well, and I don't understand why they're trying to, like, I guess rehabilitate. But if you're sentenced to life, why are we gonna...
That's the thing. That's why I don't understand. Like, if they're confined to death row, if they're sentenced to life in prison, like, they're not getting out at any point. It doesn't really make sense to waste those resources on somebody who's literally just going to be in the system the rest of their life.
Yeah, because I thought rehabilitation is like the systems in place in prison. Therefore, inmates who will eventually be released, not life in prison.
Yeah, see, that's why I don't necessarily agree with this program, because I'm just like, it's just a waste of money. Like, I guess if they want to find God in prison, that's their prerogative, but
like they all do.
Yeah, just don't
find God.
Don't make it be a state-sponsored program of rehabilitation,
or use it for inmates who actually would use it. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're gonna be like, I don't know, people who are gonna eventually get out.
Yeah, exactly. So this final section I'm gonna call was Rachel Involved. If you remember, Rachel Buffett is Daniel Wozniak's former fiance. Obviously, after all this happened, they broke it off. But Rachel was charged with 3 counts of accessory, but she claims that she was innocent.
Oh.
So I thought this was interesting. I don't know where I stand on this, but I'm just going to present the stuff that I found to you guys, and then you can decide for yourselves.
And me. I've never heard of it.
I mean, she was convicted of 2 counts of accessory after the fact on September 12th, 2018, and was sentenced to 32 months, so she is technically convicted. But
as an accessory, not as like somebody who did it. Okay.
But you guys can determine whether or not you think that she actually knew anything about what happened.
Okay.
So, on May 21st, which is the day that Julie and Sam were both murdered, she said that Dan was acting strangely. He claimed that the reason he was acting strangely was because he had borrowed money from loan sharks and they were after him now, basically.
That makes more sense than the drug theory.
And then there was another witness called Chris Williams who came forward, and he told the police that he had gone to Wozniak's apartment on the day that Sam had disappeared. Chris Williams said that he was there to collect money on a loan he had given Wozniak and Buffett, and saw the 2 of them and Hare were there together. Williams told police that at one point Wozniak and Hare left, and he was with Buffett for 3 hours before Wozniak came back with $400 without Hare and was acting very emotional and panicked. So
I know the last name is Hare, but you said he came back without hair, and I for a second thought he came back bald.
Yes, that is exactly what happened. This kind of lends itself to that, like, money was the motive theory again. That he was in debt to loan sharks because he left with Sam, then he came back without Sam and with $400, which we know was the amount that was getting withdrawn from Sam's account. So he clearly left, murdered Sam, stole his money, and then came back to pay this land shark guy. She also changed her story, saying that she hadn't said that she had actually seen that 3rd guy with the black hat that I mentioned at the very beginning of the episode, but that she was under the impression that the man was there because Dan had said that he was. So during the performance of 9, which is the musical that they were in at the time that this happened.
Is that the one about,
I don't ask me because I don't know. I just know the name of it.
King Henry VIII had 6 wives. Okay.
So during the performance that night, some of her castmates said that Rachel actually cried on cue in one of the things, which castmates said was unusual for her. I guess they thought that she wasn't as good of an actress to be able to just cry on cue like that.
Shady.
So they said that it's probably because by that point she already knew that Sam was dead. Mm-hmm. Like, she knew that Dan had already killed him.
Yeah.
And that's why she was able to cry so easily. She also claims that she didn't realize that the phone that Dan was texting on from his apartment was not his own, even though Sam owned a flip phone and Dan didn't. So it's like it was very different phones. Rachel claims she didn't realize that it was a different phone.
Probably.
So that's a little fishy.
I would realize.
There were Google searches on the couple's shared computer for how to hide a body and quick ways to kill people.
I'm not gonna lie, I've Googled that, but it was for a case.
Well, that's why I remember, I think it was in the Natalie Holloway episode, I was like, if people looked at her search histories, they'd be very concerned. So, like, that I understand, but the fact that this guy actually murdered somebody.
Yeah, he murdered 2 people.
Yeah, it's a little bit more suspicious. And so she also left a comment in response to Julie on Facebook at about the exact time that Julie would have been meeting with Dan the night she was murdered.
Ooh.
So some people say that maybe it was supposed to be like
a ploy,
trying to make it seem like she was
involved.
Yeah. But initially she had told police that she didn't know that Dan had left the apartment that night because she had, quote, fallen asleep while watching a movie. But the timestamp.
I don't know about you, but when I fall asleep watching a movie and I'm on the couch, I wake up a lot easier than I would if I fell asleep watching a movie in my bed.
It doesn't happen very often to me, so I can't I can't say. But it was just the fact that, like, the timestamp on this comment obviously shows that she wasn't asleep at the time.
Yeah,
you know?
Like, clearly, Miss Girl.
Rachel apparently echoed that whole story about Sam having family problems, even though the family and friends have all said, like, that's not true. There were no family problems. So it kind of makes it seem like she and Dan were, like, colluding in a sense. Yeah. And then also in the Dateline episode, they showed the interrogation room. Like, they had brought Rachel into the interrogation room to talk to Dan, I guess. And when she had been informed of what he had done, she wasn't, like,
surprised,
I guess. Like, she didn't act like...
She was like, oh yeah, he does that every Tuesday.
Well, no, it was more so just like, she turned to him and she was like, what have you done? But it wasn't like an upset or angry. It was just like, kind of like very...
What have you done? It was like, what have you done?
Yeah, it was just like very calm. And okay, so for that one, like, some people, when they're faced with some like traumatic event, they tend to like shut down emotionally because they don't allow themselves to feel emotion. So that's very possibly what could have happened.
Well, but she's also an actress, so she probably knew how to control her emotions a lot better than, like, say you and I would.
Yeah. So take that with a grain of salt. But I mentioned earlier that during the sentencing hearing for Dan, they tried to argue for a lighter sentence. The way they did that was by trying to pin it on Rachel and basically like, yes, he did it, but what if he had done it under the influence of somebody else, you know? So they were basically trying to make it seem like Rachel was this seductress who lured him into making this decision to murder 2 people.
That would make sense if she had a vendetta against them, but
yeah,
the only thing that makes sense to me is he needed money. He knew Sam had money. He killed Sam, then realized he had to come up with a reason to get rid of Sam, so he kills Julie, which makes sense after you put it all together.
Yeah.
But, like, why would Rachel be like, yo, go kill them? Like,
yeah. Like, there was no evidence that would suggest that she would have any reason to do that.
Now, he could have told her his plan, and she was like, all right.
Yeah, it's like, if anything, I feel like she might have known after
the fact.
Like,
or
after
right
it
before.
Happened. Yeah, but I don't think that she was necessarily involved in the planning of it. Like, definitely not to the degree of being the one who basically instigated the whole thing. Like, that's bullshit to me.
I think she found out after he killed Sam and right before he killed Julie.
I could see that because, like, between killing Sam and killing Julie, like, they had the show together. They were back at home together as well for a little while. He was texting on the phone.
And it's also his fiance, so he probably, not, like, if he does have emotions, he probably was like, oh my god, this is what I just did. What do I do? How do I get rid of this?
Yeah. So that is all of the details of the case. Both of them were convicted of their separate crimes. I'm assuming that Rachel is out by this point. I didn't see anything specifically, but it was only 32 months, so that's like
3 years.
Almost 3 years. Yeah. So anyway, that it is what it is. Dan murdered 2 people. I refuse to accept anything else as an explanation. Go fuck yourself, Daniel Wozniak. Have a good night.
And Rachel, if you were on it, that makes me think of that TikTok. This is for Rachel, you big, the voicemail, and it's like, this is for Rachel, you big, oh, I gotta send it to you.
Okay. So, that was the case. Can you understand why it upset me more than some of the other ones?
Yeah, I get it, but I think I understand the motive, or like, I think I can rationalize the motive versus where I think you're just like, not that you don't get it, but you're just like, why?
Well, because it's like, if it was money, I completely understand it. Everything makes sense. But the fact that he's claiming that it wasn't money, that he wasn't as severely in debt, like, then it doesn't make sense to me. However, he did also admit to being a pathological liar.
Well, that, and I think, like, because he was trying to say, oh, no, I'm not broke. I think he's also, like, the type to, I don't want to admit to my faults because I am Daniel Wozniak.
Yeah. Probably made him feel like he was less of a man if he admitted to, stupid toxic masculinity that ended up murdering 2 people. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys. We are on social media. We are on Instagram at Shockingly Wicked Podcast. We are on Twitter at Wicked Podcast 1. We are on TikTok at Shockingly Wicked. We are on Facebook in a group. Just search up Shockingly Wicked Podcast and your Facebook group will pop up. It's a private group. You just join. We can discuss the case. Let us know what you think, whether or not Rachel was involved, if money was the actual motive. Just come pick our brains. And then we are also on YouTube with our closed caption videos. If we get 100 subscribers, we get a URL. So.
And we want a URL.
Yeah, it would make it so much easier. We would actually be able to tell you where to go, where to find us. So go search Shockingly Wicked Podcast. We should pop up. Subscribe. And then if you have any case suggestions, email them to shockinglywickedpodcast@gmail.com. That is everything. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye.